No.
What am I doing? Let me sit down. Let me take. If you zip it up all the way, I suppose.
Look at that.
Yeah, it must be nice.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not.
Oh, it's down that way.
Someone who was at our last LRW class. Yes. And our professor made us stay the whole class. And some of us still want to.
Off the record, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I'm not.
No. In a way that.
Taylor said he, well. You tell her she got 5 minutes. Everyone just trying to make me swear. No.
Oh, no. Oh,
Yeah.
I swear I would.
SBA is so important.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Turning
Glad.
Wait, which side is it?
Oh, that's the left. I was trying to figure that out, but I didn't.
I just don't know my rights and lefts. Oh, that's not me.
I thought that
That's water. Have you ever heard?
Where'd you get it?
I told you, do you know how to turn on this camera? Oh wait, it could be. It's like on, but I don't see where it's on. Oh, it might be this camera.
This is water.
Oh,
And a lot of alcohol. I mean,
This is a school sponsored event.
What? Why am I saying that?
because I took Kristen.
I feel like we both.
No, look, there's a.
I did not
No, forgive it my house. Yeah,
This is a school.
Do you?
Okay, we're live and
I don't have one. Is that a plate?
that one's really good. All right, that's all I needed to know. It's good. Though.
I don't.
I don't know.
I said it's good.
I feel.
I don't know why.
I just.
I meant that.
Wait.
There you go. If I don't like it.
You're gonna die from lightning.
Oh. So you don't want one?
There she is.
Well, I can make it appearance. So I'm gonna. And I have I got it.
I was checking the budget on that.
The answer is no.
We have an illegal supplemental request.
Thank you, Glenn.
Now that we have our treasurer here, I'm going to call this meeting to order, everyone. Hello.
Do you want to try?
I'm not going to do that. So welcome to our final GA meeting of the fall semester. Y'all were here. So we're going to start with roll call. Okay. President Hall, present and voting. Executive Vice President Bierman,
President voting.
Acting Vice President Padilla,
President voting.
Treasurer Smith,
President voting.
Chief Justice Davidson, Associate Justice Young, Associate Justice Campoyala, Representative DeBacco,
President voting.
Representative Hufnagel,
President voting.
Representative Maroon,
President voting.
Representative Patel,
President voting.
Representative Fuentes,
President voting.
Representative West,
President voting.
Representative Jed,
President voting.
Representative Heinke,
President voting.
Representative Hill, Representative Hunt,
President voting.
Representative Espinola Jimenez,
President voting.
Representative Ostrander,
President voting.
Representative Iyali, Representative Grunner,
President voting.
Representative Sharp, Representative Williams,
President voting.
Representative De Los Santos,
President voting.
So we're gonna move on to the adoption of the minutes from last time. Motion to vote.
Motion to vote on the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor of adopting the minutes? Raise your hand.
I'm raising my hand. I don't know how to do this.
Okay, please lower them. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Okay, and the minutes are adopted with a vote of 19 to 0 to 0. Okay, so now on to officer reports. So I have a few updates for y'all, some general reminders. This is the last week of office hours. Yay. So yeah, if you have office hours on Monday or Tuesday, you do not have to serve them. They conclude this week. So please let your constituents know that if they have any business with the SBA, to try and get it done this week, because once we go into like next week and Thanksgiving and the last day of classes, the SBA is going to go on what we're going to call it winter intermission. So we're not going to be like checking accounts as often, of course, because we have finals and we're also students and we have families and friends, and we will also want to take a break. So we will still be communicating. Like there won't be a complete closure of the SBA, but please expect or anticipate delays. I did have a letter sent out to everybody prior. If you all can go ahead and drop those in your chats as well, just to ensure that people see them, because it does have that information as well. Again, just so they have it and they're aware. That would be very helpful. The second thing is that the survival kit is now updated. For those of you who may have tried it last week, if you clicked the SBA information, it was outdated. There were a few like old words, and then I think the SBA board contact information was outdated from last year. So that's now all updated and all your links should be there. If that's not working for anyone, please reach out. And please let them know that they should accept that course, like let your teachers still to accept that course, because that is where they can find all the very important links to all the very important information that they often ask about. That's the general go-to for that information for administration. Second was the concern about the recycling bins. I have brought that to the deans. Dean Pilgrim is going to be looking into that. She's going to be coming to campus and taking a look around just to see about the general keep of things. And yes, I also did take the idea of the meditation space to administration. They are looking into it again. The biggest hindrance to that right now is just space in the school, trying to utilize every single space, and they don't want to sacrifice the study rooms, especially in times like this where we have finals and it's really hard to get a study room for a quiet room, because that space can be utilized for students to study. In regards to the scholarship appeal, so I was able to take that back to the deans, and so essentially what they said was that the scholarship, because there's no appeal process for it because it's a contract. With scholarships, when you get it, because it's like they're giving you money and it's certain requirements that you have to meet. When you sign for it, you sign a contract and there's those requirements. And so it's not necessarily an appeal process or a hearing, because that was the agreement that was signed up for. As far as the different requirements for the different programs, for the Standard Day of Honors program that has the full scholarship, there's just certain requirements that people need before graduation, before enrollment, that allows them to qualify for that scholarship, and just assessments for what the deans who or the faculty who put together the program, they feel like it's not necessarily a requirement to have continuing requirements who met those qualifications already, whereas for other scholarships there might be. And so, yes, they're going to look into making sure what they will look into about the situation is the delay and how long it took the student to hear back, because while most departments are short-staffed and there are heavy delays, it shouldn't have taken as long as it did. And they're also going to look into making sure that faculty is giving out the right info to students, or that faculty are aware of the policies of the school, so that way if students are going to them for advising or going to them about these policies, they are not informing them of the wrong things and students aren't getting disappointed. The last thing I had was the vending machines. So I was able to provide the security to see what's been up all semester. So there was a different vendor for the vending machine, and that company was getting bought out. And so there's been a transition, and now it's all settled. So the vending machine should be up and working. If there are any issues, and I'm from the looks on some of your faces, there appear to be, I'll take it back to them and see if they can just buy new vending machines if that's the case, or see what we can do about getting snacks steady in the food pantry, which brings me to the food pantry, which came from mental health and wellness, and our evening he could talk on it some more, but we're basically going to be looking for a food pantry coordinator. Mental health and wellness has been taking on the food pantry and has done an amazing job getting it started and establishing it, but it's become its own thing, and it needs its own separate coordinator. So if you're interested in doing it, or you know someone who is interested in stepping up and helping out with the food pantry, please shoot their information to me so I can connect them with mental health and wellness. The food pantry is a very vital part of our school now. It's a great resource for all of us. I know I use it several times when I don't have food or I can't get to food or I'm stuck on campus. And I know that other people are utilizing this resource. And if we want these nice things and we want resources, then people have to step up and help out, making sure that these resources are facilitated. So if we want the food pantry to continue, we're going to have to bring some support there. So please be on the lookout for anyone who's interested in stepping up for that. Other than that, that is all I have for you. And I yield my time to the Vice President.
Thank you, President Hall. Not too much to report on the VP list. I sent out the final update to all of our organizations yesterday, just going over some quick tips as we go into the winter break. One thing that we need from them is an updated list on their e-board members, so making sure that they're in compliance with the SBA Constitution, and a general list of who's running things. I know a lot of clubs have elected new 1L reps, as well as had some transitions in their e-boards. So we ask that you guys update them as well. as well as getting brief descriptions of each and every club. We want to make sure that our information is widely accessible to all students so they know what clubs we have on campus, what they're about, as well as potentially to new students through the internet as well as the New England Law website. We want to make sure that we can reflect information because a lot of what we saw in the student survival guide that they had on the internet was quite dated. So we want to make sure that clubs have the opportunity to express themselves in that, as well as update that information to make sure it's consistent on all of our platforms. The second thing that I did want to mention is, which I'm sure other people will also talk about, is the SBA survey that went out on the Canvas page. If you do have a club and have access to your own club Canvas page, you are more than welcome to fill that out, not as a student from your student perspective, but from a club as your club perspective. So you can use that to give us all the feedback that you need, as well as tell us what we're doing well, tell us what we need to improve on, and we definitely take that to heart moving forward into the spring semester. So that's about it for me. So I'll yield the rest of my time to evening Vice President Padilla.
Hi, everyone. Also light night for me. I wanted to reiterate based off of what President Hall was saying with the food pantry and reiterate what Linda was saying last week to kind of take it easy and make sure that there is enough food for the evening students. Because it seems like every time they restock, it goes very quickly. And there's a lot of us here, and there's a lot of us here all day. So just keep an eye out, watch, your intake with that. And then secondly, also with Vice President Thierman, the elections committee sent out an email a couple weeks ago about their they're revamping a kind of informational packet and sent it out to all of us and all of the reps to help out with elections in the spring. Just a reminder, that's due in, so it's not very time pressing, but just think about it. And I think that's all. Yeah, so I'll yield my time to Treasurer Smith.
Also not a lot of updates on my end. All orgs and committee chairs and presidents and treasurers should have gotten an email from me on Saturday regarding final reimbursement and pre-approved funding requests for the semester. If you would like money reimbursed or approved before the end of the year, it needs to be submitted, all requests need to be submitted by next Tuesday. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee that you will receive reimbursements or anything else until January once school resumes, just because finals and I'm a student and the holidays. And also all orgs and committees have to, it's in the email, but if you are making changes to your spring budgets, you need to resubmit your spring budget to me. Otherwise, send me an email stating that you're making no changes to it. Other than that, hopefully we'll be able to pick up. I'll let people know in December zone passes are available for pickup, and there will be an email going out in the next month or so about T passes for next semester. Other than that, we have approximately $154,000 in our bank account right now. So nothing else to report there. So time to Chief Justice Davidson.
As for general remarks, I don't have anything. We do have updates regarding the Constitution and bylaws, but we will visit those during new business. So I yield my time to President Hall.
So with the conclusion of officer reports, we're going to move on to representative reports, starting with the 3L representatives.
As far as I understand, we have nothing to report. Unless Jasmine, you have something? No. So we yield our time to the
It's like someone to brought up maybe the possibility for like sensory things at the school for like exam time, just with stress, like yeah, like sensory. I don't say like toys, it's like weird, but yeah, yeah, like fidget things, just like with a checkup in one recently. I don't know. Someone brought it up today, and I didn't bring it here. So that's it. I'm sorry. But I had a student continue saying that they had
gone to the deans with a petition that they had signed. And they got a very negative response from the deans. I don't know if they talked to you as well. Basically, they said that most students were against what she was trying to do, which was not true, because she had a lot of people sign her petition. She had basically been looking to make it so that you could elect to do a specialty within our school so that you would have priority to get certain classes, because obviously our class sizes are very limited. And so she was trying to come up with a solution to our issues. She was negatively shot down by this and said that she should go to the SBA. So I don't know what was spoken to you about that, but I just wanted to bring that up because I know that she's very passionate about it and had gotten a lot of signatures that she had brought to the dean. And was told basically,
Right. So yeah, I have heard about that. I saw the petition and I did mention it to the deans at our dean's meeting. I brought it up. And when I was bringing up several of the issues that have been brought up here, and just overall student sentiments and frustrations with us bringing concerns and not met with the most productive feedback. And so I mentioned how students were taking like initiative into their own hands, and I was informed that they had responded, and they in fact read me the response that they had sent. And based on my conversation, their perspective from it was that it's not so much what she was doing was not the feelings of the student body, but that it should be coming through the SBA. And that we're the elected student body for a reason. We're supposed to be the collective. We take those concerns and we're the ones that do the collective solutions and proposing to the deans. And that if those things are to happen in the future, it should come through the SBA. And I 100% agree with that. And that's why I went ahead and made the survey. And because that gets into what we're going to be talking about later, and just this shift in SBA going forward to next semester, because that student had done that. And that's actually what I'm going to be asking us to do. And so I asked our evening team who's in the library with the student, she's going to be connecting with the student to have her come to the meetings, because that's what we want. We want the actual ideas and solutions proposed behind that. And that's one of the things that we're going to be advocating for, because she is not that way. There were a lot of students who agreed, but with the deans, they want it that it's not just one student who's getting signatures, because like I think Dean Charles said that even if 300 signatures, that's still not, that's just a third of the student body here. And so with it coming from us, it's because we're the elected representatives, and that way we can say we represent the student body. This is what the student body wants. It has more legitimacy coming from us, and it's more collective coming that way.
I will say that there have been sentiments also relate to the SBA this way, and she basically, so I'm friends with this person. So she knew these sentiments because I relayed things from what happens in the SBA and things that are talked about in the SBA. And I kind of disagree with the sentiment that it needs to come through the SBA, because as students, we should be able to bring things as well. And she did do an entire petition that had many signatures on it. And I think that just the response itself was maybe not as sensitive as it should have been in the way that it was handled. Because it was a collective of at least a portion of our student body, and every portion, and it was a large portion. So, and I think that they are also mirrored in the rest of the portion of the student body.
But with that, the deans themselves, they also receive communications from other students. So with her going, they also had several meetings with other students that I'm hearing from them that they're like, they hear different things. And so with that, they're like, I heard that from that one student who came with those signatures if someone else started another petition, because even in my own conversations with some people were adamantly opposed to that. And so they're like, we're not going to go by what this one student is bringing so much as the SBA, because it's more, it'll be easier, I guess, for them to say, this is what the elected student body, the people who the students have voted in to enact these policies, have said that students want, as opposed to a student taking it upon themselves to come and do it, even though that's the initiative that we would like. And so that's maybe something more on later, and that going forward, that's what we're doing next semester. And reps are going to be taking a more active role in terms of what they're going to be doing and what you're going to be doing in your sections for that information to be brought back and going forward from there. So more to come on that. So I guess we'll table this comment until later in new business.
And 2 hours give them time to go.
We do that time. I don't, I changed my mind. So we had a couple, I know we brought this up probably before, but I had 2 issues brought to me by 2 separate students. The first one was that medical absences shouldn't count towards total absences. I feel like we addressed that, but that was like a bar association requirement, so it's not really anything that can
And
be.
they can just email student services to work on getting those accommodated.
And the second thing was, we mentioned it, that for future, the academic excellence program should kind of line up with what's going on the ongoing curriculum, like having the IRAC and CREAC explanations, like maybe prior to the big LRW assignments that require us to kind of really utilize those skills. And then also that someone specifically said that we spend too much time on resume and LinkedIn, et cetera, that they would have liked specifically for final prep.
Okay, also some students were sharing concerns about kind of having professors present some sort of visuals in class, because some professors don't use visuals, they don't use PowerPoints, there are no like, there's nothing for them to focus on, they just go off lectures. And some students have difficulties actually focusing when the professor is speaking without any sort of presentation or information in front of them. So they wanted to bring that up to the SBA and ask if professors could, like if it could be somewhat mandatory that professors have a PowerPoint or a document or something they could just, or at least an outline they could follow while the professor is explaining the class.
I can take that and see if that's a request that the deans can put in. I know that they give professors a lot of leeway in terms of how they structure their class and the method in which it's taught. So that could be an uphill battle, but we're going to find it. So.
When you're addressing it, maybe you could just address it like not necessarily like an outline, but just some kind of like these are the main points we'll be talking about today, just so that we like they can reference it. Because I think that that's a lot. It's like I know that I would struggle in a class like that, and I know that a lot of people also have struggled. Just having something to reference that way, in case you do get lost and then nothing to reference, like they can kind of sort of back.
We go that time for the preps.
I would just had a comment on what she was saying about the class thing, but if we're gonna bring it up in new business, I can hold the comment to them.
So if that concludes representative reports. Yeah, then we move on to old business. I believe there is none, so we move on to new business. So that's where we are. So with the end of the year evaluation survey, the idea, the logic behind that was essentially that was going to be the whole for spring semester anyway. This semester was going to be gathering just the general concerns, the general complaints going through the semester, especially for one else getting your feet wet into the first semester, gathering student concerns, figuring out what they are. Next semester is I want to shift. Instead of being more reactive and like come to us with your concerns, we're going to be more proactive, and then we're going to be seeking out and we're going to be offering solutions. So when you all come and you have your critiques or your classes or things that could be better, it'll be helpful if you also offer a solution as to what can be done in place. Like just now, what you did was absolutely perfect when you're like, this is the problem that we have with LRW, this is what we want in response. That's what I'm going to be creating with the evaluation. I'm going to go through every single one, every single response. I've already started reading them because people have already started filling them out. And you're going to be composing basically a list of SBA recommendations that we're going to take to admin starting at the beginning of next semester, that we're going to be asking that we can either implement ourselves if it's small changes that we can do, like stuff like student lounge or event wise, but academic wise, classes wise, from registration to LRW to adding more class sections. That all is going to be in a single thing where we can take it, and that way it's easier for us to hold them accountable, and they can't say, oh, well, this is just a few students' concerns, where it's like, it's explicitly written out, this is what everyone said. But in doing that, that's gonna require you all going to your classrooms, making announcements, because people, as we were finding out, don't really check their emails. There's not too many other ways that we can communicate information to students other than posting on Canvas and emails, other than word of mouth. I do what I can to spread the word. I know Igor does what we can to spread the word. We'll make posters, we'll send 50,000 emails, but then people will still let you know the information. So that's where word of mouth from you all as the representatives will come in, and will be so much, like, very, very helpful in getting that information out and getting those concerns back from students. So that way we can actually make solutions that we want going forward. Like the concentration, the solution was, it will save so many other academic problems if we implement that. And that was a brilliant solution that, like, we could totally put together and implement with all the other requirements, or all the other requests that we're asking for in other programs to revamp. Because even with the LRW program, the deans said that that's what they're looking into already. They're already having meetings on that, and they want student feedback, and so I want to be able to provide that for them with specific requests as to what we want. So it's not just them like guessing or implementing changes, and then we go from that to worse, because there was no student input on it. So that's where I'm going to be asking for your help as well going forward. I'm also going to be asking for your own ideas and your own solutions, because I have my own, but it's going to be very different. My own opinion as to what should happen at LRW is 2 years removed from the one who's currently taking class. So it'll be more helpful with those many voices. And so that's going to be the shift of SBA going forward next semester. So please fill out the evals yourself if you haven't already. So your classmates can fill out the evals, because that's what we're going to be doing. And when I compose that list of recommendations, I'm going to ask you to take it to your classes and have them look it over, have them read it over, and then give me the critiques on those recommendations. So that way we know it's exactly what's.
Oh, I was gonna say like a recommendation to the classes, sort of, kind of, but I also do think that if we start thinking about that, you know, a lot of times, my perspective is coming to many meetings, so a lot of time it just gets put on the back burner. Now, everybody else went on and registered for classes, and, you know, we got very, very slim pickings when it came time to fish. And so maybe reserving a set number of classes for evening students, you know, after all, those classes are in the evening, so in theory, we should have priority. That's not how it, you know, ended up happening. I guess just putting that, bringing it to the deans, and I guess just, you know, encouraging them to think about it when making said schedules. But yeah.
I think too, going off of that, because I mean, I feel bad because literally all of my classes are currently evening classes other than my required classes next semester. But in order for me to get the IP certificate, I have to take those classes, and they have to be within either this semester. And I hate that I'm taking it from an evening student, because that is the only time that they have designated for them.
So,
Which is an issue.
last year in SBA, the issue was, oh my God, I'm with evening classes. Now all the classes are moved to the evening. Everybody's taking the classes, and now you've got, you know, a group of 100 kids fighting for 2 spots, and it's really a battle of who can click faster and get into it. And so a little too far over, maybe like try and meet in the middle, open up some more sections, maybe more class variety. I don't know why classes start at 7:35 Wednesday, but come back on Friday or Monday, and it's like 5:20. So maybe having more uniformity, because a lot of times classes overlap. And so what you offer all those classes in the evening, if they're all happening at the same time, how many classes can you really take? And so it's more so, it seemed more of a Band-Aid than actually like fixing the problem. I hate to be so critical of it. It just, yeah, wasn't it.
It's okay to tear it apart, because if it's not working, then it's not working. It needs to be fixed to work for students. And your concern is valid in that, like, the day students I've heard have the inverse concern, where it's like all the classes are at night, and like you said, it's not convenient for anyone's schedule, and if it's not working for anyone, then what is the purpose of having it?
Just adding on to it, my suggestion, again, just maybe
suggesting to the administration to the staff to think about it is hiring more professors, because I feel like it's been the same, like someone just mentioned, like if they're just taking the same amount of classes but moving them to a different time, it's not actually expanding the amount of classes that are being offered. Like, both day students and evening students need more sections, more offerings. And if the issue is staffing, like there's not enough people to teach them, and where, like, I mean, obviously we don't really see what their initiatives are in terms of hiring, but maybe if they showed us that there are initiatives for hiring, because like if we saw some effort, like we're trying to hire professors, we're trying to find people to make these classes, but there's no educators if they're not in classes.
I will say though, 100% valid in that I will ask that they make more of an effort to be transparent in their efforts to fill positions, because I've had frustrations even figuring out the student services position. But there's also positions available for students that aren't being utilized, like the faculty position, the faculty committee position has been open all semester. Advertised in every newsletter. I sent out announcements that that position is open. I've had no applicants for it. Someone who sits on the faculty committee has a direct say in the hiring process of people who could potentially be brought in. And so if a student is not sitting on that position, then of course we're not going to have a say in the faculty that are brought in. So that I will say that there is also a responsibility on us to make sure that we're doing all that we can when providing that information to them.
Jump kind of from that. So my LRW professor has said that she would like more organization in order to come back as an LRW professor. Because as it is now, she would not currently come back to these certain situations. It is as a professor for an LRW class. And so I think that even in organizing the content of classes and how they're laid out may help in that hiring process in being an incentive for professors to want to come. Maybe more on the LRW side, just because that's a mix of being uniform but not uniform. And so that was an issue that was brought up through that, which I know that that's LRW is an issue for many people. And having good professors for that is a huge issue. And so, and she was an amazing professor this semester. And the fact that she's not going to come back because it was so disorganized is really disheartening, because she was a great professor and she could do a good job teaching other 2Ls how to legally write. So I think that even bringing that as a concern would also be.
That's helpful, because I was thinking about sending out an SBA, well, not SBA, but a novel eval to faculty as well, to get their perspective on what they think would better help classroom. So hearing that from them as well.
Mine is not, but it is going back to class availability. I think this is the second time in a row with people who are not able to get into required classes, where they're on a wait list for required classes. And if it's a required class, then it shouldn't be capped out at 50, especially when the administration admitted so many people. I think that should be an issue that's kind of also talked about, because like there's what else are students supposed to do because they have to take the class. Like if they can't take evidence before they take the class, like it's I don't know, because it's counterintuitive to have those classes when they're required classes. I guess it's just a comment.
No, that's the solution, even if it's just the basic classes, like basic bar recommended classes that they expand.
With faculty hiring at least in the music department. So I don't know if this will translate well into law. But the hiring practice, at least for choral directors or et cetera, is to have a time where the candidates, like 2, maybe 3, that whoever the hiring committee is, has whittled down to choose a time for like a performance and obviously
And for student input to questions and the hiring kids ask some questions more publicly. I don't know how, if this would, student input on hiring would translate as well with law. But I mean, in terms of transparency, I'm not sure if there's something that's nutrition with that.
You're more transparent.
Are you talking about maybe doing, when you talk about performance, are you talking about maybe like teaching like in front of a group of students? Like, no, it was like a whole class. Okay, what, I guess you could translate that into like having like, obviously the faculty, you know, the positions would open, but if we were to maybe expand that to where it's more student based, because we're the people that are going to be affected by the people that they're hiring, maybe expand maybe to where it's not so faculty based, but it's student based, and then that way when they're hiring, you could have it like a person, like a potential professor in front of us, and then we could, like, the group could sit there and be taught a 30-minute class or something like that. Just like something, I guess that could be how that translates. But I don't know if that is something that would work out well, but I just think that then students could also feel like, yeah, we feel more comfortable with this new hire because a group of our peers have.
We're thinking.
I was gonna say based off that with a guest lecture, but maybe not even like a.
Yeah.
Like a faculty specific. Like
Yeah. Just so that way. Yeah, because it's like, it's even our definition of that, it's like, yeah, sure, they're great in the profession, but that doesn't translate well for teaching.
Right.
And you know, you can be an expert in something, but again, it's like if you can't teach it, then no one's gonna learn it. And then that reflects not only that, like, I don't know, it's reference for life, but it also reflects the school and the administration should really take these things apart, because at the end of the day, we are products of what they're putting out. And if they're like not serving, it's also hard for us to serve them. So I think it just kind of trying to fix that relationship also.
So I have a couple of things I want to add. First of all, love the faculty students on the faculty hiring committee idea. I think that's very important. Our section in D3 this semester had 2 new professors who had 0 prior teaching experience in the field of law, and that was a little bit of a struggle for us because we had 2 professors while both the other sections had all like older professors who had had experience teaching. When we took that concern to the dean, they were not very receptive of that. And they said that we have sat on the classes, we have observed the classes, and that other faculty members are working with these professors to help them improve their teaching styles and stuff. And as a collective class, we noticed that every time a dean or somebody else would come observe the class, the structure of the class, the quality of the class would drastically change. And I think with the idea of the faculty like committee, hiring committee, whatever, that would also be like a great idea going forward if a professor needs to be evaluated, to have like a student group where they can easily blend in. They don't have to explicitly tell the professor when they have prior knowledge, so they can actually see what they're teaching when no one's observing them, because it's honestly very disheartening to go through this whole semester not having deans do anything about it, and then coming back in January and having the same issues with the same professor having like no progress on that end.
Going off of that, we also had the same issue where the deans talked. We had a professor who had never taught before last year, and we had the same thing where a bunch of students came to the deans and like, hey, like this is like really bad. I mean, like she graded like And I feel like our class also had the same issue where they said, oh, we talked to her, and then like she got progressively worse. And then it's like, and then it's like after she's taught us horribly, then they take the like they take the action rather they could have begin with and fixed it and did what like they did with other professors where the professor I mean fired for different reasons. At the end of the day, it's our legal education, and so like it's not something we can mess around. And I feel like a lot of times admin is so disconnected because they're not part of school anymore. They run the school, but like they're not affected by it. And yeah, so
I also wanted to add one more thing. The whole two of our professors being brand new was a concern that was raised by another one of the professors who teaches a 1L section. And we were speaking with her outside of class, and she said that she had reached out to the deans before the semester had started in the summer.
She's not the only faculty who's reached out to.
And I think that going forward, if they are having new hires, that they should not subject one section, especially of 1L, like with 1Ls who have no experience, they have no idea what they're going into. They need a strong foundation. And if two sections were to have one new professor each, that would be a better balance of the new hires and just the way the classes are structured.
And that makes sense based off of at least coaches' assessments, like getting thrills now and like seeing maybe our skills after 3 years. And that was one of his direct recommendations as someone who runs our bar prep program is that there should be more experienced teachers teaching the core classes rather than new hires or adjuncts.
So last year we had a professor who was like the worst professor. She only got fired because she was racist. And she had never taught property before, like ever, and we didn't know what she was talking about. She was a First Amendment scholar. I never practiced none of that. So maybe when they're taking consideration, who's teaching what class, be like, oh, do they at least have like an LLM or something if they've never taught you this specific area?
More than
Okay. I'd like to confess my overall frustration so far. Not so much with having two new professors, one was fine, working harder. Not just with LRW, but with my main concern right now, which I didn't think about until this meeting, is the administration perhaps indicating that they only want to field problems through the SBA. If they want to give more weight to what the SBA has to say, totally appreciate that. My experience, totally fair. But to outright say that it should only come through the SBA, not through any other student, is completely at odds with the very fabric of our society as a democracy, as a republic, right? I mean, we have referendum recall and initiative all over for a reason. When I looked at the most recent elections, I wasn't so much looking at who won, who lost, except Dr. Oswald lost. But I was looking at in each state the ballot questions. So to say that it should only come through the SBA because they're elected officials, they speak for the students, but to see the petition have 167 signatures, I think that's outrageous to say that, well, only the SBA. I understand trying to make an hourglass figure where from the students it trickles down, but what they're doing is not an hourglass, it's a choke point. And choke points only choke off good ideas in this case. Furthermore, I have deliberately left out the fact that I'm on SBA while addressing issues with LRW, with health, as in attendance, as in how we deal with COVID, specifically because I didn't think it important to levy that influence. On each case, I have been either ignored or outright denied. When I sent an email about LRW, they responded in a way that I did not appreciate, and in a way which did not address a single concern which I raised. To think that they would have addressed them had I said that I'm on SBA, which actually I think I did in the LRW one, is mind-boggling to me. It's assuming that a student takes initiative, reaches out, and does something just because they're not on SBA, they shouldn't be heard. I can't really comprehend that at this point.
So let me clarify that just a bit. The statement wasn't we're ever gonna take a meeting or ever gonna hear anything from students, like, unless they're SBA.
Right.
It was with the petition that was signed and initiatives like that that are offering specific solutions or offering like that, that should come from the SBA, where you have students that are voting on something or signing on something. Things that are official like that should come from the SBA as opposed to students taking it upon themselves, because 167 is a 10 of 1,000 is what their point is. And so, and that's to that point, I do understand where they're coming from, and that it should be a centralized. If this is what the student body is saying, why not come from people who you voted in to do that?
Redress.
Yes.
I understand what they're saying. I disagree with it simply because it does not represent the values of Democratic Republic. And if we haven't been taking the concerns of everyone in our section, which I believe we have, and I believe our fellow reps have, then we're only 16 people making the decision compared to 167 who signed the petition. I know lawyers aren't good at math, but that math doesn't add up either way.
I also think, going over that, it also just pits the entire student body against us for problems that aren't ours for the blame he plays. Because all these issues essentially kind of run in with admin, but then we're like the hated group on campus. We don't want to like look, I don't like being like seen the SBA office sometimes, because like people don't like us. And it's because we're like trying to represent the needs of people, but then also being shot down in the same way, and then being taught, well, you have to bring it through SBA, but then we bring it through SBA and they're getting the same response. And it just, it's frustrating. So I also echo your concerns.
Just wanted to add, I guess I see, and I totally agree that students should be able to bring concerns up to the deans themselves or to administration. But I also see what Tori and I guess what she's relaying over is that like the same people who signed the petition are the same people who elected us in, and who, with the understanding that we were going to bring their concerns to the administration. So as much as I agree with like, yes, there should be individual people allowed to, speak to the deans, I also do understand what they're saying when they're saying bring it through SBA. And I don't think they're necessarily saying like, we're only going to listen if it's through SBA. I think they're just saying like something like what was suggested, which I think is a great idea. And I think the fact that they got that many signatures is very admirable, and like the work and the passion that goes behind that, extremely admirable. And it's great, but at the end of the day, something like that seems like something that should be in our constitution, almost in our handbook, and because that's something that seems so permanent to the school, something that's going to be so long term, that it should be written in officially. So I think when it comes to matters like that, they're going to be officially written in long term. That's what we're elected for, is to like be able to, create just like the meeting minutes and like the stuff that they sent us for this meeting, like be able to create these new laws and be able to create new amendments to the Constitution. That's what we are elected for. So I think that on big matters like that seem long-term and permanent, I understand where they're coming from and saying like stuff like that should or be voiced through us at least.
I think that it wasn't meant to be brought as something that was going to change altogether. I think it was brought as something that was being voiced that didn't seem like it was being heard even through the SBA. And I think that's why they went their own route, because they had seen through experiences that have been shared with them how they've been shot down. And so I think that they went a different path in order to get the petition from the general population, because even as elected members, not everyone talks to each of us. I mean, each of us talks to a very small amount of people that are actually representing the class. And they reached out to not only students, but also faculty that spoke in support of those decisions. And so I think that after going through those steps for themselves and for the passion that they felt about it, to then be shot down without even like reasoning. It was, this should be a matter brought to the SBA. It seemed more as if something like it has to go to the SBA, which it should not be, as it's been stated. Like that is not, I mean, I do realize we are the governing body, but our people of the governing body should also be able to bring those issues.
I think at the very least ensuring that, and I think in such a few situations like these where a student is not being really spearheaded a project, I think that it's ensuring that those people that spearhead these projects are in on the conversation, and it's not just the SBA effectively commandeering this idea, because I think that perspective of a student who obviously cares, a student who is not necessarily from the perspective of being a representative, but the lay student person is important in conversations like that.
So just to clarify on that, we are going to reach out directly to the student. That's already been something that's been established, and the polls and surveys was something that was always going to happen. And I hear you in terms of like feeling like it has to come to the SBA. I think that this specific one, because of the point Gigi made, it's something that was going to be asking for a big change, whether or not the student realized that or not. That is something that they're always going to push back on. But there shouldn't, I do agree that there shouldn't be an absolute bar to the deans. And from my conversations with them, there will not be. Granted, because I've asked for those points and that when students are meeting with them, because what will happen is, especially with the petition, I didn't even know about the petition until it already been sent around, already established and sent. So how can I go and support that student or advocate for that student, or how can we as the board in our meetings go and say, this is exactly what students wanted if that wasn't brought to us? Y'all bring the general concerns to us and it's like, okay, I get that. But unless there's a specific solution like this, specialty was a specific solution that could have been offered. And I did, once I found out about the petition, that's why it came up in our games meeting. I was able to find out the response and everything that happened. Because when I found out about it, I was able to go fight for that. Like, this is what students are asking for, the specialties. Unless those like specific solutions are brought, there's nothing we can do if you were just saying the general concerns, because they're going to be like, oh, we know, we're working on it. Whereas if you have a list, like this is what we want, it's easier to be like, okay, you were working on it for 2 weeks and we haven't heard any update. What's the update now on what your specific plan to the specific thing is? And those can come if we have those solutions, but it's just a matter of being, I guess, more connected to the student body, which was the plan for spring from Jump Street.
I don't want to speak for Marcus, but I think what was kind of missed out from his point was that after reaching out to different faculty or dean, their response that was given to him as an individual student did not feel adequate. And also we have been talking about this LRW issue for weeks. And I know that one of the things that came up in one of our meetings talking about LRWs was some potential solution that maybe they could hire another like LRW coordinator who is also not teaching their own classes. So they have enough time to structure these classes to have a little bit more organization amongst the professors who are teaching, especially the adjunct faculty members. The response that Marcus as an individual student got back was kind of disappointing to see that coming back. I think that disconnect, which would not have happened had we gone through SBA, it just feels kind of wrong. And I do agree that something more permanent, like having that petition, something that's going to change the way our courses are organized, the way people are able to register for classes, something a little bit more, I guess, solid. I understand.
So it's the overall general tone of communication and responses.
Right.
Like
And
dismissiveness is
the dismissiveness. And then on top of that, not having the solution. So we're disappointed and frustrated and we're complaining, but nothing is happening. And we're not just complaining as individual students, but also bringing up these concerns as the SBA. And still, like 3 months later, here we are, and we're not seeing any change. And I think that is what is the frustration in the general student body. Like we go up to our classmates and we tell them, hey, if you have any problems, if you have any concerns for the admin, please let us know. Literally, like the vending machine has been something that's not something I understand that things take time and you can't just immediately, like, can't just go and change things overnight. It's just that, especially when it comes to education and classes and school related things, it's a little disappointing to see no initiative taken. Like, not even, okay, we're gonna look into it, kind of just like, oh, we already did what we could do and this is how it's going to be.
I'm just gonna say, going off of that too, it's also not just like 3 months, it's that these issues are issues that every student has brought up multiple times throughout the years. And so at this point, it's kind of hard for, I guess, students to take the answer, oh, we're working on it, or, oh, we have that solution, because they've had at least 3 years, especially in regard to the LRB program that you said that your injury class, it was a problem before then. So this is a deep-seated issue. And so it's not just like we're waiting for just a few months, but we're waiting for years, and again, not fulfilling their obligation as a Falcon to help educate us as well.
I'd also like to point out, while they may have not expressed too far in terms, their actions on everything that IW has brought forward and on this petition suggest that there is an absolute bar. So I don't necessarily buy into the fact that actions speak louder than words, but in this case, they certainly do. And their actions have completely barred any approach that wasn't from SBA. And like we're saying, these issues have been brought up in SBA to no avail.
I'm wondering if, I mean, I know that you talked about like polls and such for next semester, but when you were speaking originally based on the elections, I'm wondering if we can do like one big poll with the spring elections, like with that have like questions on there. It all depends on who actually votes in the election and who actually votes in the polls that you guys will be sending out next semester. But I feel like there might be like slightly more weight on like the big spring election, because in normal elections, there's like people who are on the ballot, but then there's also people, like citizens make changes to laws and legislature and kind of speak to Congress through their election on the ballot. So I don't know if that's something we could do. I don't know what would hold more weight and what would tempt people to vote in which one or both, hopefully. But
implementing that, like another form of like the end of year evaluation, that in questions or changes.
yeah,
That's definitely something that can be implemented, but that would be enforced by and during the whatever changes though, that would have to be enforced by the transition.
I know we're coming up close on time, but, oh yeah, it's past time. I was just gonna say, we can do 1,000 polls, ask 1,000 questions, get everybody to vote.
right.
But it's, there are people fact that LRW sucks and needs to be fixed. Class selection sucks and needs to be fixed. Excuse my poor language, but, I'm not sure what more. And, I'm actually thinking about submitting a letter of intent that, possibly joining the SO committee, because what else needs to be done? So I could see why, someone felt the need to start a position, because you brought it to the SBA, you brought it to your dean's meeting, and it's just the same way around. I think we're working on it. At what point do you say, you know what, I'm gonna take matters in my own hand and fix my own problem? And so I just think that maybe seeing what you can do with the dean and seeing what needs to happen, to get the problem fixed, because really, we know what the 2 major problems is that have been consistent. I was at SBA last year, same set of problems. And so I just think that it really isn't an issue on, identifying the problem. It's more so action-based. And so we can't fix every problem, but I think the 2 major ones that seem to keep coming up, LRW, the class selection, whatever have you, but that's my 2 cents.
So that concludes the conversation on the SBA evaluation. We're going to move on to the GA spring meeting schedule. So I'll also send this in an email so you guys can have these dates down at. But basically what we're going to be doing right now is voting on the method of how GA meetings will take place. at the beginning of the semester, the board voted that the method would be in person. So that's why in-person meetings have been here. And that's just based off of various experiences and just feeling that the meetings would flow better or be more productive in person. But hearing from some of you over the semester, just noting events that have taken place or just convenience wise, I'm hearing that it might be more feasible for the GA if the meetings take place online next semester. So I just wanted to open the floor for debate, just 5 minutes, keep it quick, as to whether people want to have it in person or not. And then at the conclusion of that, we're going to vote on whether or not GA meetings will be in person next semester. Just so you know, before we vote, the GA meetings will take place on Thursdays. On Thursday, 8 p.m. Sorry, 7 p.m. It'll be an email too. At 7 p.m. Starting the first week of school, January 12th is the first week day.
The LRWs, will they? I don't know who knows this, but they all end at 7, correct? Like none of the
5 to
LRW
6.
classes. Yeah, right. They don't go. Perfect.
And if you had a class conflict, you would be excused for the time that you have the class. So we have to do the accommodation. So those would be the days. And just to note, if we do go to move it on to in person, there's gonna be regulations that come with that. Like your cameras are gonna have to stay on. If your cameras go off, it's gonna be like you're not, it's an unexcused absence. And other things that are gonna be more formalized as we go through the spring semester. But just so you know, it's not gonna be like oh, we're not doing anything. We're still gonna be working. So, but either way, we can get work done. We're just gonna be voting on whether it's in person or not. So with that, I'm gonna open the floor for debate.
So I'm definitely one of the people who is a strong proponent of moving us to Zoom. I think as other members have brought up in the past, there are a lot of logistical challenges, especially as we enter into the winter, of members not being able to make it or not being able to stay late. One of the other concerns that has been brought up tonight is like the idea of us being a democracy and us trying to include as much student involvement and potential in that. As the AVP working with a lot of the organizations, they have communicated to me some of their challenges of coming at night when they are day students, or just having this in person at this very inconvenient time, no matter what your schedule is, sort of blocked to being able to access this body and being able to raise their voice. So we definitely want to see more public comment. I think really being in person is a way that we can reconnect this body to the student body at large and make it as accessible as possible. And plus you guys have done it. Sorry. I'm sorry, over Zoom. Over Zoom. It's been a long day. So yeah, and also, in comparison to last year, I think everybody has done a really good job of showing up, being vocal, expressing their opinions, and I think if you guys can come in person and show up and do your job, you can certainly do that on Zoom as well.
Like a personal comment, so I would also prefer to be on Zoom. We're D1, so our first class starts at 8 in the morning. So these days are really long for us. We're gonna switch next semester on the day, but we're gonna switch with them, and then they're gonna be really early. And Grace has LRW today, so she can't really go home. So it's just like a lot of back to back to back. And if I could just do this in my apartment, I would really, just prefer that. Just
I agree with that. Oh, okay, I agree with that. I just think that we also all have this class on conflict. It's not just like the minors, like we also have classes in the morning. So we're just, I don't want you to think that you guys want to have the morning classes. But my only issue, I guess, with it being online is that my experience with online kind of meetings is that either people are all talking at once. People don't know, it's kind of awkward, I guess. I feel like if we were able to do it smooth, not smooth, it's not gonna go perfectly, but have it to where not everyone's talking at once. Here we're able to kind of see it either hands like that or being called on, but I think it's kind of hard oh hey, yeah, you talk or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna number you all. And then if you don't get a number, we're closing the floor for debate. Yeah, get out of here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm gonna do a number this week.
5. Yeah.
Somebody else. Is hybrid an option? Hybrid? We have Matt, Jasmine, is that an option?
So with hybrid, there was a conflict in that it's hard to manage both. We'd have to have somebody actively watching both. And Kat is taking notes and talking. So I guess we could do that, but it's just harder to manage and it's easier to have people all in one method, either we're all in person or we're all in person.
Okay, sounds good.
I just wanted to note we were on Zoom all of spring semester for SBA meetings and it went, in my opinion, went perfectly fine. I think what we did was just like raise our hand on there and then get called on and it's almost the same, I think.
I have 2 points. First, going off what you said, I think that Zoom could work out as long as we have like a moderator, either the Chief Justice or like President, just we have a moderator that kind of selects the people in a specific order, sends it in the chat, depending on who raised their hand first. And I feel like that would make everything like flow very smoothly. My second point is for the camera thing. Honestly, I feel like it wouldn't be fair to make it like I'm perfectly fine and comfortable being in front of the camera. I don't mind, but some people might not be comfortable with that. So maybe we could have something like check-ins or like some sort of way to check in to make sure everybody's actually like active in Zoom and not just passively just has the Zoom in the background. But I feel like forcing everybody to have their camera on might not be like very nice.
So with like anything else, we can compromise on that one. I'm gonna have that be a hard rule that your camera has to stay on. One, because you're on camera now, whether you know it or not, you are, and this is being live streamed and documented. And as a representative, like you are, like putting yourself out, like so you have like your face has to be visible, especially when you're speaking, especially to make sure you're listening to like what's going on. Like it's just one of those things because I know how easy it is to be on Zoom and slip away. So it's like that's sorry, that's gonna be a hard one. Like if we're on camera, we're gonna be on camera.
I was just gonna ask about hybrid too. So.
Okay, so I guess.
I was just gonna say I'm an evening student by force now because all the classes that I'm forced to take are at night. So in person, I just wouldn't be able to come, but online, I could kind of finesse. You know what I mean? Because some of my classes are online, so I could just finesse. I have an iPad. That's why I haven't been to any meetings this semester because I usually have to practice. But yeah, I like in person, and it's efficient. But also Zoom, you've been using it for 3 years. You unmute, camera on, camera off. I don't think it's that complicated. I think it should go smoothly.
It's fine.
But do end up going to Zoom, any chance the time we pushed back?
No, that's like the hour this week. That is like the time that we can do.
So 7?
Yeah, 7 on Thursdays for next semester. It was that was the one time that worked out.
I'm not have anything, let me just say that out loud. It's not a class that doesn't, that doesn't have 7, so there won't be evening next semester. We just throw that out for Tuesdays today, but Thursday at 7, I'll just make sure to email and report into somebody.
Yeah, that's the issue you run into literally every day of the week with the exception of Friday, is that there is going to be a class in which someone is gone or a large chunk of people. Because I think we ran into LRW conflicts and another day and it was a mess. But that was Thursday was what we carved out.
I just have a question as to how did we choose?
So executive board has to be at meetings. This semester, the JVP was in class during the conflict because he wasn't on the board at the time that we set the schedule. Had he been, it wouldn't have been at this time either. That's always been standard that the executive board, because of what we do and the roles that we play and the information that we bring in and do with the SBA, we have to attend meetings. Whereas representatives, because there are usually more, it's not just a single representative representing that you could share related information to others if you needed to miss the meeting at least for park, whereas that's not necessarily the case for executive board.
I could possibly see if I can do something, if that might work for everyone. On Wednesday.
We'll do some talking. For now, the GA meetings are going to be on Thursdays at 7 p.m. now. Check your emails, I'll let you know, but that's what it's officially at for now. So with that, I'm gonna motion to vote.
Second.
All those in favor of staying in person, please raise your hand. In person, I'm gonna do in person, then on Zoom, as opposed to in person or in person. Okay, so all those in person. Please lower them. All those in favor of Zoom, please raise your hand. Wait, hold on. One more time, raise your hands. All those in favor of Zoom. You're in favor of Zoom, please raise your hands. High up. Okay. As of right now, at that time, the vote for staying in person. A vote of 8 to 7. Oh, any abstentions? Sorry, y'all. Just assumed everyone.
Don't care, so.
Okay.
Okay, outcome is the same. The vote of 8 to 7 to 4.
That is not. Okay, so that concludes that matter. Now we move on to the matter of the reinstatement.
I'm
of-
sorry, Tori, I didn't hear the result. Like, what was the? So, are we in person or are we on Zoom?
I know the voice of God from it's gonna stay in person next semester.
All right, and then if we have time conflicts, I know somebody brought this up, but if we have time conflicts, we're just gonna have to. Like, what does that look like?
You would be excused for the portion of your conflict.
All right.
I'm being so fast. Okay. Yeah. So we're moving on to. And with that, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. So everybody, I would like to introduce you to the Environmental Law Society's e-board. They have been super patient with us tonight in listening to all of our colorful commentary. I will explain their situation, but basically we are going to do a vote on reinstatement. They have been so kind in working with me to help get everything up to board. Essentially, there was just a technicality in which we were able to resolve. So now we have a new board of awesome active members that's going to help bring Environmental Law Society back into play here at New England Law. So with that, I'll give my time to President Haskins. Do you want to take the floor?
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so there was a technical requirement that we missed. Essentially, there were no meetings that were had because the e-board, except for Daniel, our lovely Lone Ranger basically out here, she was by herself. The entire e-board either transferred or resigned at the beginning of the year. So she was kind of holding things together, trying to gauge in, trying to find a new e-board. She was able to work with Blake to kind of get things up to date, work on restructuring for us. And so now we have a full e-board. Elections took place for the Constitution. And we have a lot of great ideas and initiatives for next semester. I'm actually a 3L and I intern with Mass DEP. I'm already working with attorneys to set up an expert panel for environmental justice talk, which they're super excited about. We have a lot of outings, like a trip to a zero waste store that's in Massachusetts, which is really great. We have a walkthrough of an exhibit at the Boston Public Library, which is actually also on environmental justice and kind of the history and evolution of that, which is amazing. We want to reinstate the ELS newsletter to kind of give 1Os an opportunity to do some legal writing in a field where they can form a writing sample, but also kind of give everyone a flavor of kind of what Environmental Law Society Society does and what we're about. And working with our professors, Professor Linus and Professor Williamson are super hands-on. They're super excited about where we're going, kind of revamp. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I'm missing. I contacted the Boston Athletic Association. So one thing we really want to do is a race cleanup after the Boston Marathon or other Boston road races to promote. So we're already kind of working out some of the logistics for volunteering with them. So lots of exciting things like that coming up. Book club on the rights of nature, which is a really great book. Yeah, we have a lot of great stuff in the works, and I think we're a very dedicated group. I also have experience. I'm the treasurer for Pila, and I think they have really great transition materials. Kind of incorporate some of that into our e-board so that we have good transition materials moving forward, so that we're never in this position again. And kind of know what to do, so there's no issues with submitting a budget next year or anything like that. We all feel really passionately about the group and where it's going.
Just a quick question could be.
Does anybody have any questions? So that, let's motion to a vote.
So
Okay, all those in favor of granting status to the environmental law society, please raise your hands. Okay, please lower them. All of those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So the Environmental Law Society gains status with a vote of 19 to 0. Congratulations. Very excited for all the things that are planned and to come. If you have any questions, you can of course contact ADP as we have been doing. That concludes the business that we have. We're going to open the floor to public comment.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
No.
Oh, no, you're not opening the floor to public comment. Mistake on my part. Point of clarification. We have to do some more business. You all please definitely. I yield the floor to Chief Justice.
No.
Okay. Motion to open the floor for discussion. Okay. Second. I get a motion.
Motion to open the floor for discussion.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about any of the amendments that were sent to you with the meeting materials? Any questions, comments, concerns about any of them?
Yes. I don't know if the elections chair has reached out to the board about this. Paul and I have been in constant communications with him, and we thought that it would be appropriate to have it in the Constitution somewhere that the elections committee would have a chair and 2 non-GA members as permanent part of the elections committee, like minimum of like 3 members, including the chair, so that the chair is not just unilaterally making decisions to change things. I don't know who is in charge or if it's going through the bylaws committee or like how that's being worked on, but since I saw the bill, I just wanted to throw this comment out there about.
I was not aware of that, so it's great to know. Does it affect, like?
It does not affect, I just
Cool,
have.
because otherwise the table will that though. But yes, we will work on that. Usually there's also vice chair. I just don't think it's but
So with that, clarification real quick, with that, he has the ability to just change that as now with the handbook and put that in the handbook, and then we can just codify the handbook as well. So that way that all the specific changes that he wants, instead of having Ariana draft like 15 bills, that could be an easier way to do it.
Yeah, so with the change that there's 3 members required on the elections committee, would that be in the elections handbook or in the Constitution?
It would be in the elections handbook, but by constitution, it already says that the election handbook is what governs.
Okay.
So if that's in the handbook, then that's in the handbook.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Couple
Okay.
questions.
Yes.
That- just you can vote on it.
Okay, cool. Can I get a motion to vote?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor of we're gonna go one by one, just FYI. All those in favor of amending the Constitution regarding conflict of interest with the judiciary, please raise your hand. Okay, please lower them. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Vote passes with a vote of 17-0 to 2. So now moving on to Bill 2205 regarding Robert's Rules of Order. All those in favor of passing this bill, please raise your hand. Lower them. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the bill passes with a vote of 17-0 to 2. Moving on to 2206 regarding hearing complaints. All those in favor to specify this is the hearing complaints regarding the judiciary that sat in the academic year in which the events transpired. There's multiple about hearing complaints. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Please lower them. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that vote passes with, the bill passes a vote of 17-0 to 2. On to 2207. Regarding hearing complaints that only the General Assembly rather than the entire student body will be able to view hearings. All those in favor of passing this bill, please raise your hand. Please lower them. All those opposed? Bow your head. Any abstentions? Please lower them. Bill passes with a vote of 14-1 to 4. You're on Zoom. Just please remember to lower your hand if you've already voted so that you don't get voted twice. Don't get counted twice. Moving on to 2208, hearing complaints, the requirement that the judiciary hold a closed hearing if both parties are unable to meet. This doesn't change anything subject matter wise, just changes wording to clarify that it's a strong requirement. All those in favor of passing this bill? Please lower them. All is opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the bill passes with a vote of 17-0 to 2. Moving on to 2209. Requiring student organizations to include a line of succession in their materials. All those in favor of passing this bill, please raise your hands. Lower them. All opposed? Any abstentions? Bill passes with a vote of 18-0 to 1. Moving on to 2210 regarding the elections committee. All those in favor of passing this bill, please raise your hand. Please lower them. All those opposed? Any abstentions?
I meant to vote yes.
Okay. And the bill passes with a vote of 18-0 to 1. Moving on to 2211 regarding when elections are held for the Chief Justice. It previously stated that it was held at the second to last meeting, even though they've always been held during the last meeting. So, we're approving this bill. Please lower them. All opposed? Any abstentions? And the bill passes with a vote of 18-0 to 1. Lastly, Bill 2212 regarding the change in wording under the under Article 3, Section 4 of the Constitution to eliminate derogatory and not politically correct language. All those in favor of passing this bill? Please lower them. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, bill passes with 18-0 to 1. Okay, and with that, I yield with my time to President Hall.
So with that, we do public comment. We have to do public comment.
Yeah,
I
I have
have
something.
public comment.
I have something. So sorry, I was gonna say it earlier. I forgot about it. I didn't write my stuff down, so sorry. The t-shirt competition is a logo competition. Ends tonight, 11 to 9. There's a lot of people that already do logos. More would be really cool to tell all your friends. That's on that. Huh? It's the logo competition. Yeah, it's on Canvas. It closes tonight at 11 tonight. So make one and then we'll vote and you'll see the vote next week.
No, it closes at 11:59.
Yeah. That's all. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, wait, Jasmine.
Yeah, I had a quick comment. I just wanted to make sure my vote was counted when we did the voting for how we were gonna host meetings for spring. I know that we started off and I raised my hand, so I just wanted to make sure that my vote was counted. With the numbers, the 874, I was just adding up the numbers. I just wanted to make sure my specific vote was counted.
It was. It's 19 total.
Okay, thank you.
How are you? Great.
Thank you so much, I swear that was so
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of what I sent marketing.
I have to go all the way down.
Oh, perfect. Like you can like use that.
Take the pizza. Eat the
Wow. Yeah, I didn't just get super
So long. So long.
I don't know.